The knock comes at 11:47 at night. 3 soft taps that somehow sound urgent and hesitant at the same time. Michael Harper is standing in his kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee he made but hasn't touched when he hears it. For a moment, he thinks he imagined it. It's late. It's Tuesday. Nobody knocks on doors at this hour unless something's wrong. He moves toward the door slowly, uncertainty making each step deliberate. Through the peephole, he sees her. Emma Castellano, his neighbor from across the hall. She's wearing an oversized gray sweater that swallows her small frame. Yoga pants, no shoes, just socks. Her dark hair is pulled back in a messy ponytail. And even through the distorted fisheye lens, Michael can see her eyes are red and swollen. His hand is on the doorknob before his brain fully processes what he's doing. When he opens the door, Emma doesn't speak immediately. She just stands there in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself, looking at him with an expression that breaks something inside his chest. "I'm sorry," she whispers finally. "I know it's late. I couldn't be in there anymore." The quiet. It's so loud I can't breathe. David, her husband. The funeral was yesterday. Michael went. Sat in the back. Watched Emma stand at the front of the church. Composed and graceful, greeting mourners with quiet dignity. She'd looked so strong, so together. But now, standing in his doorway at midnight, she looks like she's held together by the thinnest thread. And that thread is about to snap. "Come in," Michael says immediately, stepping aside. "Please, come in." Emma hesitates for just a second, then steps across the threshold into his apartment. It's smaller than hers, more cluttered. Books everywhere, a guitar leaning against the couch, the warm glow of a lamp creating shadows that feel safer than the harsh overhead lights. She stands in the middle of his living room like she doesn't know what to do with her body, with her hands, with the grief that's radiating off her in waves. "I shouldn't have come," Emma says, her voice cracking. "You barely know me." "We've just said hello in the hallway. I don't know why I knocked on your door instead of someone else. I don't know what I'm doing." But Michael knows why she came to him. He's known for months, maybe longer. It's in the way she always smiled when they passed each other. The way conversations that should have lasted 30 seconds stretched into 5 minutes. The way she'd linger in the hallway, finding reasons to talk. And the way he'd do the same. Michael guides Emma to his couch, and she sits carefully, like she's afraid she might break if she moves too quickly. He doesn't ask if she wants tea or coffee or water. He just makes chamomile tea, because it's what his mother used to make when things were bad, and brings it to her with steady hands. Emma wraps her fingers around the mug but doesn't drink. She just stares at the steam rising, watching it curl and disappear into the air. The silence stretches between them, but it's not uncomfortable. It's necessary. Like she needs space to remember how to form words. "Everyone keeps telling me it'll get easier," Emma finally says. Her voice so quiet Michael has to lean forward to hear her. "They say time heals. That grief comes in waves, and eventually the waves get smaller. But right now it just feels like drowning. Like I'm underwater and everyone else is on the shore shouting instructions I can't hear." Michael doesn't offer platitudes. Doesn't say it'll be okay or that she's strong or any of the meaningless comfort people default to when confronted with someone else's pain. He just listens. "David was sick for 2 years, Emma continues. And now that she's started talking, the words are flowing like something that's been dammed up too long. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave him 6 months, and he made it 2 years through sheer stubborn willpower. 2 years of hospitals and treatments and hope and devastation and hope, again and more devastation. And I was so focused on taking care of him, on being strong for him, that I forgot how to be anything else." She takes a shaky breath, and Michael can see her hands trembling around the mug. "Everyone saw me as the devoted wife, the caregiver, the one who never complained, never broke down, never asked for help. And I wore that like armor because if I was taking care of him, I didn't have to think about what came after. About the silence. About being alone. A tear slides down her cheek and she doesn't wipe it away. The funeral was yesterday and people kept coming up to me saying how strong I was, how David was lucky to have me, how inspiring our love was. And I stood there nodding and thanking them, and feeling like the biggest fraud in the world." Michael's chest tightens. "Why?" Emma's green eyes meet his, and there's something raw and honest in her gaze that makes the air between them feel charged. "Because for the last 6 months, while my husband was dying, I started to have feelings for you. The confession hangs in the air like smoke. Michael's breath catches. He knew there was something between them, some unspoken connection. But hearing her say it out loud, now, like this, feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Emma sets the mug down on the coffee table with shaking hands, and Michael can see she's terrified she's said too much. Crossed a line she can't uncross. I shouldn't have told you that, she says quickly. God, I shouldn't have come here. You must think I'm horrible. My husband's been gone for 2 days, and I'm sitting in another man's apartment confessing feelings I shouldn't have ever had. Emma. Michael says her name gently, and she stops, looking at him with eyes full of shame and grief and confusion. You're not horrible. You're human. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. Just bitterness and exhaustion. That's generous. I spent 6 months feeling guilty every time I saw you in the hallway. Every time we'd talk about nothing, the weather, the broken elevator, that Italian restaurant on the corner, and I'd go back to my apartment feeling lighter than I had in months. And then I'd see David, my dying husband, and the guilt would crush me. Michael moves slowly, carefully, sitting down on the couch beside her but maintaining distance, respecting the space she needs while offering proximity she came seeking. Tell me about him, Michael says. About David. Emma looks surprised, like that's the last thing she expected him to say. You want to hear about my husband? I want to hear about the man you loved for 13 years, Emma finishes. We met in college. He was studying architecture. I was in graphic design. We were those nauseatingly perfect couples everyone either loved or hated. We finished each other's sentences. We'd spend whole Sundays in bed reading, and not talking and being completely content. He proposed on a bridge in Prague at sunset, and I said yes before he could finish asking. She's smiling now, a sad smile but genuine. We were going to have kids. Bought a house in the suburbs last year. David designed it himself, custom everything. We moved in 3 months before his diagnosis. Never even finished unpacking. The mystery of who they were together starts unfolding. Not the perfect couple everyone saw, but something more complicated, more real. The thing about a long illness, Emma continues, is that you lose the person twice. Once to the disease gradually, as it takes pieces of who they were, and then again when they actually die. By the end, David wasn't David anymore. The pain, the medication, the fear, it changed him. Made him angry and small and scared. And I loved him through all of it. But I also mourned him while he was still breathing. She turns to Michael, and there's something desperate in her expression, like she needs him to understand something crucial. So when I started looking forward to seeing you in the hallway, when I'd time my trips to the mailbox to coincide with when you got home from work, when I'd lie awake at night thinking about your smile instead of David's suffering, I wasn't betraying the man I married. I was trying to remember what it felt like to feel something other than grief. Michael has been silent, letting Emma purge the poison of guilt she's been carrying. But now he speaks and his voice is steady and honest. I noticed you 9 months ago, he says. Before I knew David was sick. Before I knew you were married, actually. You were carrying groceries and one of the bags broke, and oranges went everywhere. I helped you gather them and you laughed. Really laughed. And I remember thinking I wanted to hear that sound again. Emma's breath hitches. I remember that day. You were wearing a blue dress, Michael continues. And you made a joke about fruit-based disasters being your specialty. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. And when I went back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, connection. Then I saw your husband later that week. And I realized you were married. And I pushed those feelings down. Told myself it was just attraction, nothing serious, something I'd get over. He pauses, choosing his words carefully because this moment matters. This honesty matters, but I didn't get over it. Every time I saw you, those feelings got stronger. And I felt guilty too, Emma. Guilty for looking forward to our hallway conversations. Guilty for wondering what if. Guilty for caring about someone who belonged to someone else. Emma's crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. But she's not hiding them anymore. When did you find out David was sick? About 4 months ago, Michael admits. You mentioned it in passing. Said you couldn't make the building meeting because of a hospital appointment. And I saw it in your face, the weight you were carrying. After that, our conversations changed. You started opening up more, telling me about the treatments, the setbacks, the hope, and the fear. And I became someone you could talk to without judgment. Without pity, without expectations. Emma nods slowly, remembering. You were the only person who didn't treat me like a tragedy. Everyone else would get this look, this sad, sympathetic, uncomfortable look. But you'd just listen and ask real questions and make me laugh. About stupid things that had nothing to do with cancer or death or grief. That's when I knew, Michael says quietly, that what I felt wasn't just attraction. It was deeper, more complicated, and also completely impossible. The identity flip happens here in this moment of mutual confession. They're not just neighbor and grieving widow. They're two people who've been circling each other for months. Both feeling something forbidden, both carrying guilt, both now sitting in the wreckage of what was and the possibility of what could be. Emma shifts on the couch, turning her body toward Michael, and the distance between them feels simultaneously vast and microscopic. David knew, she whispers. Michael's eyes widen. What? A few weeks before he died, he was having a good day. Lucid, present. He looked at me and said, "You've been happier lately." I tried to brush it off, but he kept pushing. He said, "There's someone. I can see it. And I'm glad." Emma's voice breaks. I tried to deny it, but David just smiled and said, "Emma, I'm dying. The least you can do is be honest with me." So I told him. Not your name. Not details. Just that there was someone who made me feel human again. Someone who reminded me I'd exist after this nightmare ended. The weight of David's blessing sits heavy in the space between them. Emma's hands are in her lap, fingers twisted together, and Michael can see she's been carrying this final, secret like a stone in her chest. What did he say? Michael asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma's green eyes meet his, and they're full of tears and something that looks like relief. He said, "Good, don't mourn me forever. Emma, don't turn me into a ghost you live with for the rest of your life. When I'm gone, I want you to be happy, even if that happiness includes someone else." She takes a shuddering breath. Then he asked if you were kind, if you made me laugh, if you treated me like I mattered, and I told him yes to all of it. And he squeezed my hand and said, "Then don't feel guilty. I'm giving you permission to live." Michael feels something crack, open in his chest. The generosity of a dying man. The love that puts someone else's future happiness above your own ego. The devastating grace of letting go. He was a better man than me, Michael says honestly. I don't know if I could have done that. Emma shakes her head. You don't know what you're capable of until you're facing the end. David wasn't perfect. He was angry and scared and sometimes cruel in those last weeks. But in that moment, he was the man I fell in love with. Present, loving, selfless. She wipes her face with the sleeve of her oversized sweater. When I knocked on your door tonight, it wasn't just because the silence was too loud. It was because David's last gift to me was permission to not be alone, permission to feel something other than grief. And the only person I wanted to see, the only person who felt safe, was you. Michael's heart is hammering against his ribs. This is the moment, the precipice. He could back away, maintain boundaries, suggest she needs time and space and grief counseling before making any decisions. That would be the responsible thing, the sensible thing. But Emma's looking at him with eyes that are asking a question she can't voice out loud. And Michael realizes that sometimes the responsible thing isn't the right thing. Sometimes people need connection more than they need space. Sometimes healing starts with admitting you don't have to carry everything alone. He reaches out slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull back, and takes her hand. Her fingers are cold, trembling, but they curl around his with desperate strength. I'm scared, Emma whispers. Scared that I'm using you to avoid my grief. Scared that tomorrow I'll wake up and regret this. Scared that I'm a horrible person for wanting to feel something good when my husband's body isn't even cold. Michael squeezes her hand gently. You're not horrible. You're surviving. And there's no rule book for how to do that. No timeline for when it's okay to feel happiness again. No judge who gets to decide when your grief has earned you the right to live. Emma's crying again, but she's also leaning closer, and Michael can feel the heat of her body. The pull of gravity between them, that's been building for months, finally having space to exist openly. They don't kiss. Not yet. That would be too much, too fast, too soon. Instead, they sit on Michael's couch, hands intertwined, talking through the night like people do when they found a connection that matters. Emma tells him about meeting David in college, about their first date at a terrible Thai restaurant, about the house they bought and the dreams they built. She doesn't sanitize the memories or pretend it was perfect. She honors the reality of 13 years with another person, the beautiful and the difficult, the profound and the mundane. Michael tells her about his divorce 3 years ago, about the loneliness of starting over at 38, about moving into this apartment and building a life from scratch. He tells her about seeing her for the first time with those scattered oranges and thinking, maybe happiness wasn't something that only happened to other people. As dawn starts to break through the windows, painting the living room in shades of pink and gold, Emma's head is resting on Michael's shoulder. Not romantically exactly, more like she's finally found a place where the weight she's carrying can be shared. I should go, Emma says without moving. You should sleep, Michael counters. Stay, take the bed. I'll sleep on the couch. Emma lifts her head, looking at him with exhausted eyes that hold the first hint of peace he's seen since she knocked on his door. Will you sit with me? Just until I fall asleep? I don't want to be alone yet. Michael nods and they move to his bedroom. Emma lies down fully clothed on top of the covers, and Michael sits beside her, back against the headboard, hand still holding hers. Thank you, Emma whispers, eyes already closing. For listening, for not judging, for being exactly what I needed tonight. Always, Michael says, and means it. She falls asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out, her face finally relaxing. Michael watches the sun rise through the window, painting Emma's sleeping form in morning light, and thinks about the strange way life works, about loss and connection and the messy, complicated way people heal. This isn't a fairy tale. Emma will wake up and still be grieving. Tomorrow will be hard, and so will the day after that. There will be guilt and confusion and moments when she questions everything. But there will also be this, the memory of a night when the silence became too much and she found someone willing to share it. When grief made space for the possibility of something else. 3 months later, Emma and Michael are having coffee at that Italian restaurant they'd always talked about in the hallway. She's laughing at a story he's telling. Really laughing. The sound he fell for 9 months ago. She's wearing David's watch on her wrist and Michael's sweater over her shoulders, carrying the past and the present simultaneously, which is how healing actually works. They're taking it slow. Some days are harder than others, but they're taking them together, which makes all the difference. Here's what I know about love and loss. They're not opposites. They're companions. You don't stop grieving to start living. You learn to hold both, to let them exist side by side, to understand that loving someone new doesn't diminish what you felt before. Emma taught me that. David's final gift taught me that. If you've experienced loss and felt guilty for finding happiness again, know this: you're allowed to heal. You're allowed to connect. You're allowed to build something new without betraying what you had. If this story touched something in you, if you felt the weight of silence or the complicated relief of finding connection in unexpected places, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to Highway Ghost. We tell stories about the messy, beautiful, complicated ways people find each other and themselves. Stories about the journey, not just the destination. Thank you for listening to this one.